There's one. All righty. These damn Landstar qualification people are about to drive me to drink.
Yeah, I saw where you sent Tony a thing.
Oh. It's been. I mean, I sent everything the first time, and they're like, "We need
Yeah.
a clear copy of the 2290." So I just sent the one I sent the first time. I'm like, "Well, here you go."
Wow.
Yeah. Never ends. And I get to do it 7 more times.
You'll probably be on number 5 or 6 this time next year.
Yeah.
Just because of them.
I ought to wait and just do send all 6 of them in at once. Just to,
That would melt the system down, I'm certain.
Hey, did you see that old boy that got his in the Landstar group today that went all after that agent, and then the agent came in with receipts?
I saw, I think what you and Richie had sent. That was all.
Oh, man.
I'm not in that group on Facebook. Was that
Yeah.
all of it? What?
Man, what the why is my computer being so hateful? Okay. Oh, that's a problem. That's something laying on my mouse pad, and it was freaking my computer out. Maybe. Nope. Okay. Oh, nothing's working. It's not good. That's Well, it's 8:00. I'm gonna have to live with it. Good evening, lunatics. It's time for another episode of the podcast. I have the outlaw Philip Freese with me this evening. Larry's got something going on, so he couldn't join us. So Phil, pinch hitting, and I'd love to know why my computer is not responding to me. That's par for the course. So here we are. It's Friday night. Phil and I've been having a pretty good pre-show, telling stories that don't need to be told on the air about our
That's a
youth.
fact.
Yeah.
Yep.
That way. Oh, okay. All right. There we go. Now we're back in business. Yeah, it's been. I went up and worked at the shop today, and I tried to help with some inventory, and I now know that there are 2,366 filters in the filter trailer, because I touched every one of them. So my brain is a little bit scrambled. I've got part numbers running through my mind. But hey, buddy, if you need some filters, Cam Service Center, Charleston, West Virginia, we got a bunch of them. We had some Landstar drama that y'all probably would find entertaining. Let me see if I got which. I think it was in Landstar hating Landstar. I took screenshots because I figured the guy was going. Oh no, it was in the official group that he did this. He said, avoid booking loads with this agent. The agent double books freight. When you tell them you're in heavy traffic on your way, they find another truck and don't notify you. When you get to the customer, you're told the load is gone. Meanwhile, your out fuels, toll, and time, I excluded them from my agent list. I strongly suggest BCOs boycott this agent. I've had enough with the refusal to pay bonus and double booking. Time to shut down these money hungry agents.
What is paying them? What does he mean by paying bonus?
That was an ongoing question in the comment section, wanting to know what's the refusal to pay bonus. Well, the agent owner came in with the receipts, and they were beautiful. He said, "I'm the owner of this agency. I'm not going to air this driver's dirty laundry." And the things he said to us, he was rude and unprofessional the entire time. He did not show up to pick up on time. He was over 4 hours late and would not communicate with us. Whenever he talked to employees in Landstar, he was rude and crude, even though it was his fault. The customer recovered their own load with their own truck to save the freight. We sent driver cancellations via email, text, and tried phone. He would not communicate. He still showed up at the customer after cancellation, making Landstar look even worse. And we lost the business. There was zero double brokering. This agent has a great reputation and treats our drivers right. I can testify. I've run loads for that agent for years. We have records of it all. Good luck with your anger. The way you treated everyone when you were in the wrong was extremely unprofessional. So I went to his profile and looked him up, and he's the Reverend Doctor, retired from the New York State Department of Corrections, 25 years of service. Yeah.
Oh my.
Good luck with that, brother. You know, it's, and I've seen it, you know, I mean, we have watched, because we've gotten to be friends with agents, you know, I've gotten the phone calls, you know, "Hey, do you have any trucks? This driver just bailed on me. He won't communicate. He won't tell us what's going on." There's an agent here local to me, that, you know, it's 10 miles from my house. And I was in their office one day, and she's got a big poster board on the wall with BCO truck numbers that are not allowed to haul her freight because didn't show up, wouldn't communicate. They were late. You know, it's, have I ever had an agent do something wrong? Sure, I have. But I remember years ago, there was a bunch that wanted a rating system for agents. I said, "Okay, all right, go ahead. I think that's a great idea." There will also be one for BCOs, and I don't think y'all want to see how that goes.
Yeah.
Probably not going to go well for y'all to have a rating system. But you know, and Phil's a perfect example of it, of a BCO that has worked diligently to build relationships over the years, and he gets phone calls that these knuckle draggers never will. He gets opportunities that they never will.
I mean, this load I'm on now, I mean, you know, the first thing I'd done when I pulled in this truck stop here and set the brakes tonight was, you know, I did two things. I sent an email and I sent a text message as to where my location was, because that's one of the requirements to do the load. So you have to update them every day, at least once a day, where they'll know where you're at, you know. And all this is written out in the email when you get the rate con from the agent, you know. It's all explained what all is required from the driver. A lot of people think that, you know, all you have to do is go back up to dock, open your doors up, let somebody else load the trailer, and you shut the door and go on your merry way till you get to the receiver. You know, there's nothing more required. Well, sure, I guess that works if you want to be, you know, the bottom of the barrel. But you know, if you're looking to build relationships and, you know, get to the good paying freight, you're going to have to communicate with these agents, and you're going to have to let them know what's going on. You know, if you got a problem, if your truck breaks down, or, you know, you run into traffic or whatever, it is your responsibility to call that agent and let them know what is going on and where their freight is. You know, they're like, "Well, you hear this? I've heard this quite a bit. You know, it's none of their business where I'm at." Well, that's their freight on your truck and trailer. So yeah, it is their business to know where it's at, you know?
It's literally their business.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, think of it like this: you order something from Amazon, and that thing don't show up in a timely manner. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to get on there and you're going to start tracking the package to see where it's at. That's the same things the agents does. It's the same concept. So why would you not want to communicate with them? Good
Yeah.
communication. Even if you do have a problem where your truck breaks down or you run into something else, that doesn't necessarily mean just because uh, something happened that was out of your control doesn't mean that they're not going to let you haul for them again. If you communicate and show them that you know that you're a responsible driver. I mean, trucks break down all the time. It happens.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate part of the business, but to let somebody be out in the cold about something like that, just it that's just a horrible way of doing things.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I was watching something on TikTok there earlier, and a guy was talking about economics, and I said teaching economics to Americans is like teaching calculus to a gorilla. I mean, it's just um, they're passionately wrong, you know. Um, and we've seen, gosh almighty, since these 2 hurricanes came through, obviously Helene was a monster. I have some friends, that, didn't evacuate. I had some that evacuated to Disney, and I thought, well, because 'cause they're Disney pass holders, so they just went and stayed at Disney, because Disney's got its own power grid, and but what was fascinating to watch was people be angry. People on the internet were angry at people that didn't evacuate because they just wouldn't do what they're told, right? Because the one thing you're taught in American government schools is shut up and do what you're told and don't ask any questions and certainly, don't disobey. And I mean, there were, I would say, millions of people that did not evacuate. They hunkered down, they boarded up the house, and um, because that's what they do. I mean, it's hilarious. A bunch of y'all have never met anybody from Florida, and it shows. Um, you know, and there was some woman. I mean, it's gone nuts. This lady, she lives in a concrete house, big fancy house, probably millions of dollars, and she said, "Look, I'm not going anywhere. My husband built this house." And she's like, "Oh, I'm sure y'all make fun of me for being rich." Well, whatever. My husband's a contractor, and we're not going anywhere. We're staying. Oh my God! I mean, the comments and posts about I hope her house gets washed away. Like, do y'all hear what your thumbs are saying? Do y'all really think that through when you're sitting so safely ensconced behind the safety of your keyboard? Um, Especially after watching what happened of course, they did it to the people in North Carolina. Well, y'all should have left. Like, what are you going to do? Leave in 30 minutes? Because that's what warning they got. Um, so you just, I can't imagine being a customer or a broker and trying to get these loads moved with the kind of people that are out here running up and down the roads that just don't care about the customer.
yeah,
They couldn't care less. Now, if they're ever the customer, I promise you, like you said with Amazon, these people, um, they'd be the Karen, right? They'd be the ones stomping their feet and throwing a fit because their cheeseburger wasn't cooked right, or they didn't put fries instead of onion rings in the bag, and they'd be throwing a fit. But then they'll turn around and be these people that that treat um, that treat the customer that way.
yeah,
Please pay like we care. What the hell's that mean? Please pay like we care. That's a comment on TikTok. Um, See, a bunch of y'all have things backwards. You think that your value comes first. The loads need to pay like we should care. Well, here's why we're successful in business, and here's why Phil is successful in business. Because I give the exact same level of service to a load that pays $2 a mile that I do to one that pays $5 a mile.
Well,
they get the exact same service from me, regardless of what it costs or what it pays.
I mean, what it pays should be irrelevant. I mean, if you agree to do that load, it doesn't matter. Like you said, you should give the exact same service to the $2 a mile load as you would the $5 a mile load, because you're the one that picked up the phone and said, "Hey, I want this load," you know? So if that's, you know, if you're booking loads that, you know, you think should pay more or whatever, you might want to rethink that, you know?
I've given this example, and it came this week. Okay, I called a load alert popped up, boom, and I hit the button, right, because these days when the good loads pop up, you've got 3 seconds, right, boom, and I knew who it was off the code. I hit the button. I said, "Hey, it's Chris." I said, "Do you still have this load?" And I could hear the phone ringing in the background, right? And she goes, "Yeah, I've got all kinds of people on the line, but I'm giving it to you." I said, "Well, I appreciate that." Right. And this was a load I booked for a BCO. That was $3,000 in like a day and a half. It was all drop and hook. Super easy. It was high value. So, you know, you had to babysit it, but you had to follow all the rules and all that crap. But it was $3,000, right? For gosh, I don't know.
That high value load though paid like you cared though, right?
Right. So anyway, so you know, the thing was $3,000, whatever, and super easy. So anyway, here's the reason that happened. In 2021, she called me one day. She said, and she's Jamaican, so when she talks, it's, you know, it's really hilarious. And she said, "Oh, I'm in a terrible state. I'm in a terrible state. Can you help me?" And I said, "Well, I'll do sure, I'll do whatever I can to help you." She said, "I've got this load, and I'm on the verge of losing this customer because they have this one lane and the pay is terrible. But the rest of the lanes all paid." And of course, at that time, we're talking $5, $6 a mile. But she had this one load. She was having a terrible time. The driver fell off of it or whatever. Anyway, she was having a terrible time. And she said, "Do you have any drivers close?" And I said, my closest guy is 300 miles away. And so the load, everything about the load didn't meet my daily minimum. It didn't meet rate per mile. It meant nothing. And I said, "Listen, you've helped me out a lot. You know, I'm going to send my guy up there." So I deadheaded. It was Byron, by the way, when he was still pulling a van. I deadheaded him 300 miles to pick up the shitty load to save her, to help her. And for the last 3 years, I get phone calls from her. "I wanted to call you before I posted this," you know?
Yep.
And she gave me preference on a really sweet, you know, $30,000 or $3,000 in 36 hours. Because of a decision that I made to give her gold level service when her load did not pay for gold level service. Right.
Right.
That's the thing that you have to realize that you will do. I remember when we were at the truck show, I don't remember if it was truckstop.com people or the Kevin Rutherford thing, but anyway, we're in this room and everybody's asking, how do you build a relationship? When you make the phone call, they were talking about calling to book a load with a broker or whatever. But, how do you build a relationship? I said, you don't build the relationship during the phone call. You build the relationship while you're hauling the load. That's where the relationship is built. How you behave at the shipper, the communication that you give them when you arrive at the shipper and when you leave the shipper and when you get to the consignee, when you leave the consignee, and the documentation that you give them, that's how the relationship is built. You're not going to build a high quality, long lasting relationship in a 3-minute phone call. It's going to be developed over 1 load or 5 loads or 10 loads. And the more you keep coming back, and if you're not one of these knuckle draggers, that's a constant pain in the ass and makes your life a living hell. They're going to remember you, because that's the fortunate thing about operating in the trucking industry in 2024 is it's not hard to get to the top. It's not hard to set yourself apart.
That's a fact.
Oh man, it's and what was crazy, and I didn't even know when I started in 2014. Let me back up. One of the biggest culture shocks for people that come to Landstar specifically, but I'm sure it's this way. There are some other carriers. Is there's no box on the dash, and every load comes the same way every time. The loads come to you by email. Every email is different. The formats are different. The files are different. Every different agent just communicates a different way. So when I came here, cold and naked like everybody else does, I would send an email. Like, they would send me an email with the load, and I'd say, "Got it, thanks." And then I would get to the shipper, and I would send him an email that said, "I've arrived at the shipper." And I would leave the shipper, and I'd say, "Hey, I've left." And I'd get to the consignee, like, "Hey, I'm here." And then when I was done, I would say, "Hey, I'm empty. Thanks for the load." And I'd move on to the next thing. And that's just what I did, right? So I'm like 2 months in, and this agent goes, "Hey, listen, man, I just want to thank you so much for your excellent communication." And I went back and I went, "I sent you like 12 words at different times." I mean, it was arrive shipper, depart shipper, arrive consignee, depart consignee. I mean, it was like 6 or 7, 8 words. And she's like, "Oh, but you just don't know how wonderful that is." And I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, so people don't tell you what they're doing? Like, "Oh, no, no, no. We rarely know what's going on. We don't know if they've arrived at the shipper. We don't know if they've left. We don't know where they are." And especially in those days, because there was really, other than the tracker on the trailer, which don't work half the time, they had no idea. It's a little better now. I think Landstar 1 has some better tracking built into it, but it's still not perfect. And so,
They can also track them on the OmniTracks.
yeah,
They,
yeah,
they can't do it on the what's the other one?
Skybits.
No, what's
Oh,
the
the
other
Motive.
ELD? Motive, yeah. I don't think they can do it on Motive, but if you have OmniTracks, they can tell you what parking spot you're sitting in.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Blake, here's a good comment. I've never seen another industry that shows rudeness and disdain for people who put food on their table. Um, it's wild. And then, I mean, it's one thing to kind of toot your own horn. If you're like, you've risen to the level of somebody that's got specialized trailers or a big house sleeper, and and you've like really risen to a super level to kind of toot your own horn a little bit. But they brag about being assholes. They're like, "Oh, yeah, yes, I'm
Yep.
absolutely useless, and by God, I'm proud of it." I'm going, "Oh, okay, all right then."
Imagine if you did that kind of stuff in a different business. So like you had a home remodeling business or even a mechanic shop or something like that. Imagine how far you get. Like, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you're not going to get very many customers doing that,
The only people that can get away with that is Dick's Last Resort. They're
Yeah.
they're the only ones. Have you been to one of those?
I have not.
Oh, dude, it's
I've
awesome.
heard about them, but I've never been to one of them.
We went to one in Gatlinburg a couple years ago, and my soon-to-be 10-year-old is just quiet and shy and doesn't like people very much. And so,
Right.
like, he's had the same barber for 4 years and has never spoke a word to him ever, right? Now, if he
Right.
knows you, he's a chatterbox, but if he don't know you, you're getting nothing,
He's
right?
out.
And so
Yep.
we're trying to overcome this challenge of getting him to order his own food, right? I'm like, "Hey, buddy, you need to order your own food." Well, the server will walk up and he'll just dead stare at him, you know? So we're gonna go to Dick's. Now, I said it. I said, "Hey, listen, brother, you need to understand something about this restaurant that we're going to. It's called Dick's." And he was like, "Okay, why?"
For a
And I'm like,
reason.
I'm like, "'Cause they're dicks, right?" I said, "So they're probably gonna be mean to you. Like, they're probably gonna be rude because that's the shtick. That's the comedy of the whole thing." And he was like, "Okay."
Right.
So the waitress comes up and throws the menus at us. She's like, "What do you want?" And just throws the menus. And his face lit up, and then she threw napkins and they went everywhere. Dude, he ordered his own food. He's talking to her. And I'm going, where is this? Who is this child? And I'm like, so explain that to me. He's like, well, this place is different, so I'm different. Oh, okay. So I just need somebody to be an asshole and you'll eat it up. But they put hats on you and they write really, really, really offensive things on them. Um uh and we were there with a kind of a church group and we told them that we went. And I wouldn't go to that place. I'm like, no, you probably should. You could probably do well to lighten up a little bit. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, what a great experience. But um, now I took a call for the shop that everybody was super busy, and I was up there and I answered the phone. This dude needed a radiator, and so they worked up the price and he was like, well, I need an estimate, and I'm like, okay, and it was like $2,863, like parts, labor, the whole deal. And he was like from India or something. And he was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, what's the price? And I said, $2,863 plus coolant. We don't know how much coolant you'll need. And he was like, okay. And he's like, oh, but buddy, we've done business before, buddy. What is best price? I said, well, that'd be $2,863. And he goes, but we've done business before. What is your best price? I said, well, that would be $2,863. Um, I wasn't mean about it, but I'm sitting here thinking because it ain't my shop, right? But I'm thinking, number one, the Freightliner. It's a brand new truck, by the way, 24 model. But of course, the dealership was
Right.
going to be, we'll get to you in a week or two, and we could get him
Yeah.
brought in. And I'm thinking, okay, they're charging you $140 an hour instead of $250 an hour. They're getting to you right now. Like, put the truck in the bay, and in about 6 hours, you'll have a radiator, right? We're charging you
Yep.
basically half of what these crooks are charging. The price of the radiator itself was completely reasonable. So yeah, here's your best deal. I'll give you a discount. It's $2,863. Um, I mean, I get it because I've been on that side of it, but um, that's the whole
Well,
thing. Oh, I need discount. Discount.
that's one of the things that I don't think a lot of truck drivers or companies either. Uh, they don't realize how important it is to get that truck back out on the road as soon as they can. Even if you've got to pay more money to do it.
Oh hell
Like
yeah.
when I was up in Reno the other day, I needed a part for this truck. I can't remember. I think it was, well, I don't know. It was some kind of valve anyway that I was putting on this thing. And, the guy, I went to the international dealer and went in there. And of course, he didn't have the part. And he said, I can order it. And he said, it's in Vegas. Well, Vegas is what, 350 miles from Reno, something like that. He said, it'll be here tomorrow. He said, we'll have to charge you freight on it. I said, okay, well, how much freight? And he kind of took a step back and he's like, $60, And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I don't care. And he said, you sure? I'm like, yeah, I need the part. Like $60 ain't shit compared to what this
Oh
truck's
yeah.
losing when we sitting here. Like just put the freight on it and get it here. And anyways, I mean, Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with the warranty. You know, he said the guy had a 2024 truck, so I'm sure it had a warranty on it. So he's going to sit there for, you know, 2 or 3 weeks waiting on them to put a radiator in this thing and lose all kind of money, all kind of revenue versus paying the $2,863 and never how many cents
Mm-hmm.
and be on his way. You know, but I don't understand why some of these truck drivers are so cheap when it comes to fixing these trucks, because that being cheap sometimes, you know, it's going to hurt you in the long run. Just fix the damn thing and get it over with.
I saw it was some lady on TikTok today, and she said, everything is a conspiracy when you don't know how anything works. And I went,
Yeah,
okay, that's profound, because boy, people will believe some stuff. Holy crap. Um, wow. Um, and then if you try to go, okay, yeah, listen, I see where you're coming from, but that's not really how that works. Oh, yes, it is. No, no, sweetheart, that's not how that works. Um,
yeah,
and so the reason that we are so adamant about people in our program learning how the truck works. You have to know, at the very minimum, you have to know the terminology. You have to know the vocabulary. You have to know what a pinion is. You have to know what a carrier bearing is. You need to know what a brake chamber is. Like, I get that you don't need to know how to do it, wouldn't hurt. Okay. But you've got to understand the basic concept of what's a hub? What's inside a hub? Oh, there's bearings and a cone. What does the cone do? I had a very frustrating conversation with some people today about cavitation, about why you can't put tap water inside a diesel engine. Um,
right.
and they just looked at me like I had three heads, and I'm like, so I pulled up a picture, and it was a year ago this week. I drug a truck down to Florida to have a guy rebuild the engine. And the problem with that truck was it was blowing oil coolers. The first one we're like, oh, oil cooler went bad. Well, then there was a second one and it blew up, and we're like, oh gosh, the first one was a bad part out of the box. And then it blew a third one, and we're like, oh, okay, we have a problem here. Well, turns out there was so much cavitation that the compression, or I'm sorry, yeah, compression was leaking into the oil system and overpressuring, and the weak link was the oil cooler blowing it up. Well, so he sent me pictures of these liners after he pulled them out of the truck, and I went back through my text, and I'm like, here, look, that's what cavitation looks like. That's what happens when you put tap water in a diesel engine and not distilled water, unless you're going to use 50/50 pre-diluted extended life coolant. But I got nothing. Like I got no curiosity. I was just blank behind the eyes. There was
Yeah,
no revelation there. And so, like, even when you say this is what it looks like, when you do A, B is going to happen. So don't do that. And here's why: lights are on, but nobody's home. Um, it's just it's really frustrating. And everything that I have learned in my life in the last 30 years after I got out of school was because I was curious. Well, how does that work?
right.
Well, fortunately for all of humanity, everybody on the planet right now is carrying around a device that has access to all the world's known information. And if you don't know how to do something, you can find a video of you on YouTube of somebody doing that thing that will show you step by step. Now you might have to um, um, watch a few videos, to make sure that you've gotten it from uh, all directions. But my gosh, there's so much information available today, and people are dumber than they've ever been. It's just
Well, you have to
shocking.
have the ambition to find out. You know,
Yeah.
if you don't have the ambition or the want to be able to go in there and find the information and watch the videos and they're useless to someone like that, and they're going to be the ones that's always broke because they're always paying the shop to work on their truck or sitting on the side of the road because they didn't do the preventative maintenance. You know,
We had a lady
so
3 years ago in the program, and she was terrified to go into the shop and tell them what needed done. Well, with good reason. Number one, she's a woman, right? So they're automatically going to assume that she's stupid. That she don't know what she's talking about. And I said, listen, sometimes you're going to have to be a little bit rude. You know, listen here, I own the truck. I'm in charge. You do what I tell you to. I'm not going to do what you tell me to if what you're telling me to do don't make any sense, you know?
right,
And she called me crying one time. She was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I'm like, listen, I just find in your mind the person on this planet you hate the most. All right. And go in your mind and tell them. And she was like, okay, I'll try that. So it worked. But
yep,
it's I've had to do that on the phone, as the manager and say, no, 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 that we're not doing that. This is what we're going to do. Well, I don't think that's going to work. Well, I, I don't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember asking you your opinion. I remember just giving you an order, and you're
yeah,
literally paid to take my orders. Um, and if you can't handle that, I guess I'll go find somebody else. And we towed a truck out of a shop one time. Because they wouldn't listen, and they just kept saying, "Oh, we're going to do this," and we're like, "No, you're not." Well, the truck left on a record because if I would have let these these imbeciles go down the path that they were going to go, they were number one not going to fix the truck and charge us a bunch of money. So sometimes you might have to be willing to put it on a record and get it out. Um, you know, Evan says Schneider driver, Schneider driver. um,
oh, Mr. Evan learned a good lesson
yeah.
yesterday. Um, yeah, and this goes for all you other owner operators or company drivers or whatever that carries a toolbox with him. Since it's getting cooler weather, you start getting
Mhm.
these cold water leaks on these things.
Mhm.
I need to go through and tighten up all the clamps on that engine, whether they're, coming off the air to air turbo, whether coolant or whatever, because they start leaking, they will leave you on the side of the road, and you're going to have to pay about $1,000 to have somebody come out there and bring you the coolant, put a wrench on the clamp and tighten it up. That you could have took 30 minutes and went through the whole truck and done that. So
So
and
was
you
that
should
the
be doing that
problem? It
about
was
once a month.
it was just
Yeah,
the
that was the
hose the whole
problem with
time?
it. Yeah, it was the clamp was a little bit loose, and he called me up after I think he'd sent you a few messages. He called me up. I told him, I said, man, I said, you got tools. I said, see if the clamp's loose. He said, well, I don't want to take it off. I said, afraid to blow the whole thing and I'll lose all my coolant. I said, well, you're not taking it off. I said, just see if it's loose. And yeah, that was what was wrong with it. So I think he tightened it up, put a gallon of coolant in it, and went on his merry way.
Well, that's
So
outstanding.
yeah, so
Uh, so I'm seeing a comment here I'm trying to figure out. Philip Bear, what is the best practice on finding a good truck? Seems Cascadias are 40,000 to 16,690 900,000 miles. What's this in reference to? Let me investigate. Um, I'm looking. The purchase price of a used truck has nothing to do with profit potential. I guess that's true, right? The purchase, yeah, the purchase price of the truck has nothing to do with um the profit potential, right? The profit potential is the profit potential. Now, you've got
yeah,
$1,000 a week. You've got $1,000 a week truck payment. It's gonna, but it's not really
that
the
concept
yeah.
that concept works if you're comparing two like trucks, but you can't you're not going to go out and buy a true heavy haul truck for what you can go buy one of these, trucks to pull a van with. You're going to pay a lot more. And then at that point, then the more expensive truck would have more potential to earn money because, you go haul a lot bigger, heavier shit with it. But if you're talking about just, here's two trucks, it's pretty much, equal side by side. One of them's a different color and a little bit shinier with a lot more chrome on it. And no, don't make a shit what you pay for it at that point. If you
Yeah.
can, you take you take a brand new 2024 Cascadia and set it beside a 2006 Columbia, and you tell me which one of them has the most earning potential then, The
Right.
Columbia is going to cost you a lot less, and it's got the same earning potential as a Cascadia because it's two trucks that do the same thing,
Hector Safety Manager, what's the percentage for owner operator lease under you guys? You don't lease under us. We're not a carrier. I saw something today, and it's funny, the similarities between truck drivers and mechanics. I was looking for a drill bit. I needed a 1/4 inch drill bit to drill a 1/4 inch hole. I was working on a cabinet. I needed to put a bolt in it to hold the cabinet together. But all my tools were in the other building, right? I'm in the main building. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to drive over to the other building to get a drill and a bit. Surely I can get one out of one of these $8,000 Snap-on toolboxes in this shop. That was incorrect. I did eventually find a wore out 5/16 drill bit. It took me about 20 minutes to drill 4 holes in a piece of sheet metal. But I'd walk, hey man, you got a 1/4 inch drill bit? No, man, I ain't got no bits. Okay, and I went to the next one. Hey, you got a 1/4 inch drill bit? No, I don't have any drill bits. And I'm looking back at these $6,000 and $8,000 Snap-on toolboxes that they'll be in debt for the rest of their lives. Thinking, y'all are like truck drivers, you got this shiny ass truck with chrome all over it. You're in debt to your eyeballs, and you don't have a drill bit. You don't have. It's just. I tell you what. Here's my money making scheme. Okay, I'm gonna buy me a used Snap-on truck, and I'm gonna peel the decals off, but I'm gonna leave the adhesive on there so you can tell that it used to be a Snap-on truck. Then I'm gonna go fill it with Harbor Freight, Gear Wrench, Husky, Craftsman, and I'm going to mark everything up about 40% and then sell it to them on payments at 18%. I'll probably make $1 million the first year. I can't imagine. I mean, I got Harbor Freight toolboxes. I got Harbor Freight wrenches. I got Harbor Freight sockets. And, damn, I've worked on a lot of trucks. I've never gone, oh my gosh, this 1 1/8 wrench will not take those shocks off because it don't have Snap-on road on it.
I've got a set of Craftsman tools in this truck that I bought when I think I was about 17 or 18 years old. I still carry them with me. There's a couple of sockets missing.
Yeah.
But, I think I've had to, maybe they replaced the ratchets once or something like that because I was probably, trying to do shit with them and I probably shouldn't have been, but.
Here's 2 questions. One, what do y'all do for rust prevention from road salt? Wash the truck. That's about all you can do.
Yep.
Second one, how would you spec a heavy haul truck? We've talked a lot about lunatic trucks, but we have the perfect opportunity with a guy here. How would you spec a heavy haul truck that's for somebody that wants to kind of start and work their way up?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question. If you're actually doing heavy haul, not just oversized stuff,
Well,
I'd
talk
go
about the
out and
difference between doing legal and oversized, which you can make a shitload of money, and then what real true heavy haul is.
All right. So in order, the thing about it is a lot of these guys that get into this heavy haul and oversized stuff think that you got to go buy, the $300,000 truck to make money. And that is absolutely not true. You can do a lot of the oversized stuff. The majority of the stuff that I do with this truck, you can do with a Freightliner, a Columbia or Cascadia or whatever. You got to understand that if it's not heavy and it's just oversized, it is what it is. I mean, you don't need the big horsepower engine and the 18 speed and the big floater tires on the front of it. All that's unnecessary. Now, if you get into actually doing heavy haul, where you need, a truck that's got a double frame or the oversized frame or whatever on it, and you want to get into something like that, then yeah, I mean, depending on how heavy you want to get, go buy the truck with 600 horsepower, X15 and your 18 speed transmission and, as far as the gear ratio on it, I mean, there's all kind of different combinations that you can use for that, depending on how heavy that you really want to be, I mean, 373, 391, something like that's probably a good all around gear for doing heavy haul. But, if you're not into doing actually pulling heavy stuff, and a lot of people will go buy these trucks and, oh, I'm going to do heavy haul, and then they only haul 2 or 3 heavy loads a year. I mean, what's
Yeah.
the point? Just go buy a regular, what I call a grocery getter truck, and go run your oversized stuff with it. You'll make a lot more money. You get a lot better fuel mileage, because you got to understand you're not going to be loaded all the time, or or even if you go pull an oversized load and go deliver it, you might pull a legal load on the way back. So, you don't want all that extra weight. The thing about it is, the heavier truck you buy, now you're cutting into what you can haul legal as far as legal weight, So if you've got a heavy truck trailer, like for instance, my truck and trailer weigh 46,000 pounds empty. So that handicaps me big time on what I can legally haul with this truck, unless I go buy overweight permits for it, And of course, if you do that, you only can haul one piece. So I can't go get a permit for a multi-piece load that weighs 48,000 pounds and take it across the country. They won't let you do that. So you're kind of specializing yourself, buying all this specialized equipment. Even though you're specializing yourself in one area, you're hurting yourself in the other one. So to go out and buy that 600 horsepower, truck with a big transmission and heavy duty frame and all this shit on there, you don't need all that stuff to go do the oversize. I mean, if you actually want to pull, 200,000 pounds, then yeah, go buy it. But, if you're pulling, and that's another thing too, a lot of people don't realize what you can actually do with a 5-axle or 6-axle setup, So it's
Right.
it's all in knowing, it's all in having the knowledge and somebody to teach you all this stuff, because you can spend a lot of money real quick for something that you don't necessarily need or want. You might want it, but you don't really need it,
Yeah.
So
Joey V says on TikTok, what size tires are best for dry van? I'm buying a 2000 Volvo. It has 24 fives on it now. Well, let's talk about the why. Why do tires matter? Tires matter because of fuel mileage. You can put cheap double coins on, or you can put the best Michelins you can find. But the fuel mileage is where the difference is made. Fuel is your number one cost as an owner operator. And so the difference between 6 mile a gallon and 8 mile a gallon is thousands of dollars every year. So if I'm going to pull a van, the first thing I'm going to do with that truck is I'm going to bring it to Charleston. I'm going to take it to Rocky in Jacksonville. I'm going to take it to Jim Fowler in Michigan, or I'm going to take it to Chad out in Kansas City or out in Arizona, and I'm going to get an MD alignment, and I'm going to make sure my suspension's right. Then I'm going to go buy the best set of tires I can find, which is probably going to be a Michelin. We prefer super singles over duals, but if you get the best Michelin and you take care of them, you can make them last. And if you watch your tire pressures and you rotate them, You ought to be able to get 300,000 miles out of a set of drives. Well, for most people, that's about 3 years. Okay. So if you get good tires on that truck and save $10,000 a year for 30 years, it doesn't matter if you pay double or triple for the tires at the time you buy them. So the why is what matters. Um, um, when you're buying tires, and tires are all about fuel mileage, and tires can make a huge difference. Alignment shop in Charleston's called Cam's Service Center. You can look it up on Google. They'll be doing alignments here in a couple weeks. Um, let's see, what was the next? Well, Travis Jones, 2112. Where can you find insurance for a new authority? All right, Travis, I'm going to tell you this because I care about you. If you're asking that question, you have no business getting a new authority. If you're a new owner operator, if you've never operated a business before, you need to go lease to a carrier for a year or two and learn how to run your business under the safety and protection of a carrier before you go get an authority. Your chances of failure, especially in this market, with a new authority is unreasonably high. I don't care where you lease, doesn't matter. But if you are a company driver and you're thinking about getting your own authority, please don't. Please don't do that. Why would Travis do that and give away 20%? Well, I'm gonna answer that while answering another question I saw on YouTube. Let me go find it real quick. Richie B says, I'm leased to Landstar. I was wondering, is there any reason for me to keep track of Landstar's cut? I use profit gauges, but only put in the line haul to me as is shown on the settlement. Okay. Number one, Landstar or any other carrier in which you have a contract where you're exchanging a portion of the revenue for certain services. Mostly that's, it could be all kinds of different, is it insurance, or could be tire and fuel discounts, could be base plates. Okay. Landstar does not take a percentage of the revenue. Okay. Landstar gives 65% of the revenue to the tractor, and Landstar gives, depending on the type of trailer, somewhere between 7 and 10% of the rate to the trailer. That's their money that they collected. It is not your money. Okay. It never belonged to you. Number one, it's the customer's money. Landstar is collecting the customer's money, and they're giving the truck 65%. They're giving the trailer 7 to 10%. They're giving the agent 7 to 10%. And then whatever they have after that is what they use to provide insurance, to provide LCAP discounts, to provide fuel discounts, to provide everything that is involved, the sales force that is the agents. Landstar does not take 35% of your money. It was never your money to begin with. Okay. Just because a customer writes a check doesn't mean the truck deserves every penny of that money. Okay. Because if you have your own authority, okay, well, you're going to have a truck expense. You're going to have a trailer expense. You're going to have an insurance expense. You're going to have a fuel expense. You're going to have base plate expense. You're going to have permit expense. You're going to have all of these expenses. Okay. And our cost of operation right now in this market is $1.58. That includes paying the driver. Okay. Now everybody that's on TikTok is watching this Hurricane Dorsey spout a bunch of nonsense that's illogical. So just, be aware, but it's free country. He can say whatever he wants. What if and Jason Hill, what if you don't lease and haul direct for the shipper? Okay. That's certainly a viable option. What I need y'all to hear is I'm not saying that you can't get your own authority. I'm not saying that you can't go haul for a direct shipper. I'm saying that you shouldn't. Bryson E. That works until it doesn't. Okay. Um, oh, I know how you treated drivers. I hired one and got him out of the hole you put him in. Okay, buddy. I wish you the best of luck. James R. James R. James R. James R. Oh, James R. You mean the guy that came and a fantastic guy, by the way, really good dude, but a really good dude that came and got himself into something he never should have got into. And so, yeah, he left with my absolute blessing because this wasn't for him. See, I don't provide truck driving jobs. I provide an opportunity to learn how to run a successful, profitable, sustainable business. So if you come here thinking that this is just a truck driving job and you're going to get paid like a truck driver and treated like a truck driver, you're going to be miserable. And you're going to hate me. And I'm going to sleep like a baby every night knowing that you hate me. Because there's people who have come here, got to see, and went, "Ooh, you know what? This ain't for me." And I went, "Okay, well, that's why we do this, right?" Because here's what I don't want to happen. See, I know what it feels like when a trucking business fails. I know what it feels like when it all comes crashing down. I know what it feels like facing bankruptcy and repossession and foreclosure. Because when you run a trucking business wrong, it will destroy every aspect of your life. It will destroy your relationships. It will destroy your marriage. It will destroy your finances. The trucking industry is better at fuck around and find out than any other industry I've ever seen. Because you're going to find out. When you do trucking wrong, it will destroy you. And I don't want that to happen to people. Your trucks, this is great. Phil can't see any of these comments. Your trucks don't have door handles, much less seatbelts. Not one of trucks road safe. Okay. Not one. Okay. I know it's hard for a lot of truck drivers to understand because the whole industry is so, we have a driver shortage. Remember? So the whole industry is garnered toward kissing your ass, right? It's all over the back of their trailers. Come here, we'll treat you like a king, and we'll pay you good, and we'll do this and we'll do that. So when I don't do that, when I show you how to run a 2000 or a 99 to 2007 Freightliner profitably, safely, efficiently, and make more money with it than you can make with a 17 or 18 or 19 that's plush and nice and smells good and looks good. That's the point. Because I don't give a shit what the truck looks like on the top. Now, underneath, if you get it and roll under it with a creeper, oh, they're beautiful. Because our trucks are perfectly in line. You can drive. I've got a truck with 2 million miles on it. You can drive it down the road with one finger because it's had an MD alignment. So if you want to learn how to not be a knuckle dragging shithead that comes in the comment section is so proud of himself. I bet his thumbs are like erect, because his he gets off on coming into the comment section and saying all this stuff that's not true. Steve-O, I have a 2025 Peterbilt 589 that shakes and has a clunk in the front end. So I'd say that's pretty good. Y'all know, I mean, of course, y'all don't know, and I didn't know until somebody told me, but most trucks that come off of the assembly line don't get aligned. Like I don't remember the number, the metric, but they don't all get an alignment. And the factory specs are all over the place. The front end can be pointing this way, it can be pointing that way, and the thrust angles on the drives, they can be pointing this way or both pointing that way. And so you can get a brand new truck that will eat the steer tires off in 60,000 miles. Go talk to Rocky Rockefeller in Jacksonville, Florida. And I mean, he sees them all the time. Brand new trucks that will destroy a set of tires in 60,000 miles. And people are shocked because you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is a brand new truck. I shouldn't be having problems with a brand new truck. Well, when your damn axles are, your rear axles pointed east and your steer axles pointed west, your truck's not going to drive good. So brand new trucks are not always the most efficient way to operate. We got a BCO that we've been mentoring. I think he's about 10 or 12 weeks. He's been at Landstar. He got a truck from Lone Mountain, and he'd been at Prime, went to Prime and worked like an animal. Left Prime, got done with the lease and all that Prime, went and got a truck at Lone Mountain, came to Landstar, and listen, he's got a 2020 or 21 Pete with a pie car. The just bizarre stuff that has happened to that truck in the first month. A turbo, radiator, just bizarre stuff. But he's thinking in his mind, well, man, this truck's only got 400,000 miles on it. He barely survived the first month. What I see just in general, and I've seen it with my kids, they'll come up with a big plan. And I'm like, hey, that's great. Everything's going to work as long as everything works. But the very minute you have trouble, and please understand, if you are operating a truck, this is a timeless principle that's been around since they started building trucks. If you operate a truck, bad things are going to happen. Okay. Either you're going to do something wrong, right? Because you're human. You can make a mistake. Schneider's going to tear your hood off in the truck stop. You're going to be sitting in the truck. You got the curtains closed, you're watching YouTube, and then bam, here comes Flip Flop and tears the hood off your truck. Right? I wish
that was a good one.
When Flip Flop ran over Evan's hood, fortunately didn't take out the radiator. It just was cosmetic damage, thanks to me. When Flip Flop ran over that truck, we were all talking. And okay. Let me back up. So the driver calls me, hey, Schneider just took my hood off. And so I look at the GPS location to see where he's at. I'm like, oh, he's at the Pilot, Jackson, Tennessee. Well, then I see another one of our trucks getting off the interstate at that same truck stop. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. Jared's there. Well, then we've got a video chat call going with our driver, Evan, the outlaw Evan Eisenman. And I hear Evan start screaming because Flip Flop has decided he's going to put the truck in gear and drive off. And so I called Jared. I'm like, dude, you got to get over there now, like right now, because Evan's going to jail. So Jared opens up the video chat and gives us a live video feed from dealing with Flip Flop and Schneider Insurance. And I've screen recorded it, but it doesn't capture sound. So all of the unbelievably horrible and offensive things that we said about that Schneider driver were lost forever. You could see us laughing and, because we were having a really, really, really good time at Flip Flop's expense.
Flop.
Oh, Flip Flop. And then one of our, I need to have a talk with our other guy because I got a call. He goes, "Hey man, I just got Schneidered." And he's video chatting with me and he's on the fuel island. And the whole corner on the
Who was
front of
this?
his, Jonathan the other day, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 nights ago.
Oh crap.
And it's a Schneider tanker. He's on the fuel island. And somehow this Schneider driver hits his trailer. It didn't hurt the truck, but it made this giant hole in the corner of the trailer. And I said, "Well, listen, I've been down this road with Schneider before, and brother, I wish you the best of luck." Fortunately, it didn't hurt the truck because I am not in the mood to deal with Schneider's insurance people ever again as long as I live, because that's not a pleasant experience. But I did learn what the word subrogation means, and that's when you just call Gallagher, and Gallagher cuts you a check, and they go after Schneider's insurance because they were offering us half. 50% of what didn't we get 3 or 4 estimates on that truck? And
Yeah.
and then, okay, I have reached my limit with this dickhead. You're blocked. Adios, mofo. I see, we're all in the Facebook groups, all the different trucking groups. Hey, somebody just backed in my truck. How I get paid for downtime? And I hate to tell them, it's probably not going to happen. I mean, under some very, very rare set of circumstances, you might get downtime when somebody tears up your truck. But it's highly unlikely. I know you feel like you deserve it, and you probably do deserve it. It wasn't your fault. You were minding your own business, and some flip flop comes along and tears up your truck. It's sad. It's shocking. It's painful. It makes you mad. But I hope you're good with duct tape. Because if they tear the headlight off, and they don't get the radiator or the charge air cooler, I would duct tape that bitch back on and keep hauling freight. And I would also probably just go ahead and replace the hood myself, because I'm not going to wait, because if you do, I mean, we've seen people.
You're gonna be out of business.
Oh yeah, I've seen people set for, and well, I've heard the story. Oh, well, our truck was down and the parts weren't available, and the truck was down for 2 months. 2 months. 2 months. I mean, the last catastrophic. It was Greg with that engine down in Mississippi, and I think he was down 6 days.
What engine does that truck have in it? Mercedes. Yeah, but which one?
The one that no parts are available for. Well, it's weird because it's an 03 model. And I looked it up in Freightliner the other day. And it's very weird. It's listed in Freightliner like a glider kit, which I can't find out who had brain damage in 2003 and ordered a glider kit and decided to put a Mercedes engine in it. But anyway, so it's just an '03 Mercedes. So it's a pre-EGR Mercedes, but I cannot find engine parts for it. I can't find bearings. I can't find nothing. Um, I've tried highway and heavy, which I mean, they're usually highway and heavy parts is awesome. They're incredible. They can't even find them. So, um, William Haynes is in the house. I'm a real estate agent. How do I get paid when people stop buying houses? It's not my fault interest rates are high. Um, yeah, I mean,
Go back to pulling a gas tanker.
yeah. um,
There you go.
and just a programming note for those of y'all on YouTube. I had to reset the page and I've lost the entire chat. So I'm only looking at 3 comments. So if you commented something in the last 5 or 10 minutes, you may have to do it again because I've lost the entire history.
Come back to Blue Ribbon and pull a Conestoga. That's how you make money.
D64 Falcon, the red lunatic truck that showed up and drank with Phil during the Mats event at the casino. That must be in reference to a different, an earlier comment that I can no longer see. How do you feel about 11R 22.5 versus 295.75? Thinking switching to low pros for lower rolling resistance. I don't care really 11Rs as long as um the low, as long as the rolling resistance is low, it really doesn't matter to me.
There's
Rocky, go ahead.
There's a lot of guys put the 11Rs on platform trailers. So
Yeah. Rocky can probably answer that question better than I can. I love KG. Can you explain progressive shifting? Yeah, while you're shifting gears, you start screeching about your pronouns.
oh shit.
Progressive shifting. Yeah. Progressive shifting is something that we came out, years ago. Partly because in the old days, the good old days, you could not what we called lug an engine. It was really, really hard on them. Mechanical engines, you kind of had to keep them wound up. Not wound up like a 2-stroke Detroit, but you had to keep your RPMs up probably 1,400 RPMs, at the low side because low RPMs were really, really hard on the engine. When the electronic engines come out in the late 90s, early 2000s, they had a lot more low end torque. And so you could let them code down to about 1,000, 1,100 RPMs before you shifted. So progressive shifting, and if you look at a 90s or early 2000s Freightliner, especially, they have red, yellow, green, yellow, red on the tachometer. And so green was from 1,000 to about 1,500. And that's where they wanted you to stay, rev it up to 1,500 and shift. Rev it up to 1,500 and shift. They didn't want you whining it out to 1,800 or 2,000 RPMs because you were just drinking fuel. So it was just a way of shifting the manual transmission that was the most efficient way of doing it. So that's progressive shifting in a nutshell. Conestoga is the greatest platform trailer you could ever have. Well, brother, the calculator does not disagree with that statement.
Yep.
Philip Bauer, how you planning on handling major engine repair / overhaul on a Lunatic 2.0? DD15 repairs cost bunches. That has been an interesting topic. Cams last year did an end frame on a DD15. Herbie did it. And I think the guy was about 20, I want to say 22 grand all in, parts, labor, and the whole deal. Which is not terrible, but that was I can't remember if it was an OEM kit or an aftermarket kit. I know they had a nightmare scenario trying to find, I want to say it was rockers or something, but this was still in the midst of, you know, parts being unavailable. They would order it and it wouldn't ship, and they'd order it from somewhere else and it wouldn't ship. And they finally, I mean, the truck sat there for a long ass time, like 2 or 3 months, and probably 2 months, just waiting on parts. And we heard from the guy here recently, and he said it was still going fine. Now, I've heard people that know a whole lot more than I do recommend that a DD15 be out of framed. And the reasoning is that the DD15 is a great engine. It's a fantastic engine. It's well built, well designed, the whole deal. But because you have to get it perfect, like you have to do everything just right, that the recommendation was not to do an in frame. Now I know there's people that in frame them every day. I have not personally done one yet. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, I guess 5 Series 60s that we're getting ready to rebuild. And they're pretty simple. I mean, just take them apart, clean them up, cut the counter boards, put them back together, slap the head on it, and rock and roll. So I don't know. It's kind of an unknown yet. We haven't been presented with having to in-frame a DD15. But if you take care of them, I mean, I've heard of them going $1.2 million, $1.5 million without needing it. Phase shutter DD15 has tight tolerances that need to be out of frame. That's the thing that I've always heard. Like, you just can't. I mean, that's the great. And I saw Hack Nation the other day. He was like, "Look, a DD or a Series 60 just goes. It don't have the most horsepower, but they'll just go. And Rocky's truck, I drove Rocky's truck, and it was ready. It was at the end, and it was drinking about 3 gallons of oil a week. And I took it down to Florida to that guy, and he took it apart. Dude, it had broken rockers, and I mean, that thing was, wore slap out. And it still ran great. It just drank oil. But it was in really, really, really bad shape. You can't. DD15s just won't take that. When they're done, they're done. It's over. So, I don't know. I mean, I love the Series 60. I love the cats too, but my gosh, guys, they've been out of production for 17 years. You know,
Yeah, they're gonna cost you more to build than DD15 too.
yeah. Listen,
So
I love the N14s. Listen, I had a 98 Century. I was driving for a little company here in West Virginia, and it was one of those little tiny midriff baby bunks where the bed came right up to the back, vinyl seat. I mean, that thing was as cheap as you could possibly get, order from the factory, but it had that redheaded stepchild in it. It had that red top N14. Holy shit. You had to be careful driving that thing empty in the rain, because if you mashed on the gas, you were going sideways. I mean, that thing was an absolute monster. I loved that engine. I hated the rest of the truck, but it was an N14 with a Super 10. And buddy, that thing, this is back in the days when like the Signature 600 and the Cat 600 C16 had just come out, and I could run with them. That N14 was awesome. Load shark
how fuel
ash
mileage you get?
Oh, not much, which was mainly my fault. What's a Super 10? So a Super 10 was my first truck that I ever drove had a Super 10. So if
Boat
you've
anchor.
driven, huh?
A boat anchor, that's what it is. Throw it away and go get a 13 or an 18.
So if you've
Go
driven
ahead.
if you've driven a 13 or an 18, you've driven a Super 10. Okay. You split each hole. All right. So first and second are in the same hole, third and fourth are in the same hole, fifth and sixth are in the same hole. When you move the stick over past between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, when you move the stick, that's when the range selection happened. Okay. So you could move the stick back and forth, right? When you moved, that puts you in seventh, and then 7 and 8 in the same hole, and then ninth and 10 were in the same hole. So it was of course, I learned on it, so I didn't think that much about it. But where a normal 10 speed is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, range select 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This one's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then they came out with the Super 10 Top 2, which when you put it in the last hole, it would shift from 9th to 10th by itself. And we quickly figured out how to overcome that. When it would go and it would start to shift between 9th and 10th, you'd hold the foot, your accelerator to the floor, and then push the clutch in and wait. And it would sit there and it would confuse the computer. And then and then the RPMs would fall. When you do that, you let the clutch out, and then the 9th and 10th was manual. But they weren't bad. I mean, I figured it out. But a bunch of trucks, all the fleet trucks back in those days, Schneider, not Schneider, US Express and Werner, they all had Super 10s in them. That was the Super 10 and 390s. My first truck was a 95 FLD with an 11-liter Detroit and Super 10, and it would not pull a greasy string out of a cat's ass. It was gutless, absolutely gutless, with no Jake brake, by the way. How often do you do oil changes? Can you get the variations made based on the year of the truck age? So we don't do oil changes, fellas one. We run an OPS system. It's called an oil purification system. We take an oil sample every 25,000 miles. And when the oil sample tells us it's time to change the oil, we change the oil. I've seen trucks go 250, 300,000 without changing the oil. Now, when I came into the industry in the late 90s and up through the 2000s, it was not uncommon to add oil because all diesels used oil. Well, when the new style engines started coming out, ISX, X15s, DD15s, they don't use oil. The tolerances are much tighter, and they don't use oil. So it's shocking to a lot of people that are new to the industry in the last 5 or 10 years to say that if I'm running an 07 Columbia with 1.5 million miles on it, that we're going to put a gallon in every 8 to 10,000 miles. So we're constantly adding new oil, and we're replenishing the package as we do that, but we're not going to just dump 11 gallons of perfectly good oil just because somebody said, well, you should change the oil at 15,000 miles. Well, when you do that, you dump out all the evidence. And so we run an external 5 micron filter that has a heater built into it that burns off all the liquid contaminants. And so we don't change the oil until the lab sample says, hey, your oil sucks, change it. Or if it gets contaminated with coolant or fuel or something like that. Let's see. You have much opinion and experience with a 14-liter. Don't they have EGR and non-EGR ones? They did have some early 2001, 2, and 3 14 liters. They're really hard to find. But Buddy those things will run. All people. Somebody said that Detroit don't have enough power to brake. Gale Banks, the turbo guy, supercharger guy, he helped build the Freightliner Pikes Peak hill climb truck. And that thing was making 400 horsepower per cylinder.
Holy shit.
2,400 horsepower. And it was a 14-liter Detroit, and they put a turbo and a supercharger or some setup on it. 2,400 horse. I mean, all these old engines, you see these guys that do the big pulls and all that stuff, and they're running Detroits and Cats and everything, and just thousands of horsepower, and they'll take it. Just not for very long. How can I get one of those builds? What builds? Like the 2,400 horsepower?
Empty your bank account, your neighbor's bank account, his neighbor's bank account.
Yeah, like they say, how do you make a small fortune in racing? You start with a big one. D64 Falcon. I have a 2002 Century lunatic style truck. Someone busted my hood, and their insurance paid out $16,000 to replace the hood and related items. Yeah, we had that one. Well, we had your truck when you owned it. That guy got run over by, I think it was Trans Am, and we just called.
Yeah.
We stopped and got an estimate, and it was $10,000. And they're like, "Where do you want us to send the check?" I'm like, "Y'all done this before, haven't you?"
Yeah, he got hit at a Pilot, and there was a Freightliner dealer across the interstate from that Pilot, and he went over there the morning after, got the estimate, and I think it was maybe a week we had a check, something like that.
Yeah.
It was if you're gonna get hit by somebody, make sure it's Trans Am, because they don't even make fun of them. Don't even argue with the guy. Just say, hey, I just want your insurance money. It works out, trust me. They paid to have that. We were doing something to that truck. What were we doing to that truck?
Oh, we were getting ready.
It was going to Florida.
It had that.
Was replacing a bull gear or something? Was that it?
No, it was. It had an oil leak at the head.
Yeah.
We thought it was the head. It turned out it was the rear side of the front cover. Yeah. And so he had to take all that off, and it was like, I'm taking the bull gear off. Let's go ahead and put one in, right?
Right.
Are lunatic trucks still profitable? And you think it still takes around 60 to get it going? No. Number one, they're actually they're very profitable. And it doesn't take 60, it takes 30 to 40. We're doing one right now in the shop. Guy bought it for $3,000 or $3,500. I can't remember. It's an 01 Columbia, and has spun bearing. And so we had an engine from a wrecked truck. So we swapped the engine. I just took in, it was Christmas in October. I took in an order from the Freightliner dealer today, all new airbags, hubs, whole dash. I bought everything to replace the dash. But it's getting spring bushings and torque rods and brakes and drums and shocks and airbags. Basically completely redoing the suspension. Also, here's a sidebar on that. So this truck has an steer axle with what they call unitized hubs. So they don't have oil. It's not an oil bath hub. It's a greased hub. And they're not serviceable. And so I can buy a 1882201 steer hub for $388. These hubs are $1,800 a piece. Well, the kingpins are smoked on this truck, so we're going to have to do kingpins. We already knew that. And Rocky was like, well, if you don't know, I mean, and I don't even know how many miles this truck's got on it because I've never heard it run, right? Hell, it could have 2 million miles on it. I have no idea. No clue. So we start looking at like, okay, if we have to replace these hubs, that's $3,600. All right. It's $1,500 to put kingpins in it. Then brakes and drums and whole down. It's going to be stupid expensive, still within budget, but it was going to be crazy expensive. So I was trying to find a way to see if we could swap the spindles and put oil bath hubs on it. So I'm digging around. I've got damn Meritor catalogs and all kinds of stuff opened up. And I'm digging through Meritor's website and I'm trying to find, this axle and all the measurements and, going through a script. So I called Meritor and the guy was like, well, they make an engineered direct replacement axle for that truck with oil bath hubs. I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be prohibitively expensive. So he gives me the part number. So I call my guy and I'm like, hey, can you look this up? Get me a price. Well, he comes back and he says $5,500. I'm like, okay. And it comes complete from brake drum to brake drum. So it's got brake drums, shoes, hubs, kingpins, brake chambers, slack adjusters. I mean, it's cut the U-bolts, slide the axle out, slide the new one in, put new U-bolts on it, done. 2-hour job. And I'm like, that's awesome. I mean, that's probably $2,000 less and probably 12 hours of labor less than what we were going to do. And I'm like, awesome. That's great. Let's order one. He's like, all right, well, let me call the guy and find out what the deal is. So he calls me and he says, he goes, well, got good news, bad news. I'm like, okay. He's like, well, good news is, even though they don't have any in stock, they're just made to order. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Probably a couple of weeks. He goes, yeah, they're made to order in Asheville, North Carolina. I don't know if y'all have heard, but Asheville, North Carolina has been in the news lately. So I'm thinking order it today, get it sometime next summer. But then he called me the other day and he said it's like 40 days, 40 to 45 days. I'm like, okay. I mean, I can deal with that. I don't need the truck immediately, but $5,500, dude, that's super cheap and it's brand new, right? So that's probably the way we're going to go. But that Asheville, North Carolina boy knocked the wind out of me.
Yeah.
Paul, my phone died immediately after I asked you about Lunar Trucks still being profitable. Could you give me your answer in brief? Yes, they're still profitable. It's about 40 grand, 30 to 40. And I'll be able to tell you to the penny because we're doing one right now. That's what we were just talking about. I'm probably right now. Well, hell, I've got a spreadsheet because of course I do. I don't go anywhere without a spreadsheet. Let me find my, let me consult the book of knowledge real quick. Go to here and where is it? Where is it? Did it go? Barb, did you move my spreadsheet? She loves to mess around with my files. She puts them places where she can find them, which is the exact opposite of where I can find them.
Right.
What the hell did I do with that? Oh, I know what I did with it. It wasn't Barb. Sorry about that, Barb. It was me. It's right here. There it is. Survey sys. Waiting. Downloading. Opening. And where'd it go? I got 3 screens open. I'm trying to figure out which one. There it is. Right now I am at just under 12 grand in parts. With a few things left out. So right now we're 12 grand in parts. We got 6,000 for the engine swap. We'll probably have another, I don't know, maybe $3,000 in labor. So we're 12, 18, 21. He ended up buying a new transmission, a new 13 speed. That was 3,100. Okay. So if we go 12, when I say
Who'd you
12
get
and
it
6,
from?
2, the transmission
Yeah.
from Cam's. They had it on the shelf.
Okay. Gotcha.
Somebody ordered a 13 when they should have ordered an 18, and so we ended up with a 13 on the shelf. Okay,
Okay.
so 12 and 6 is 18. Another 3,000, that's 21. So 24 gets us the transmission. 29 gets us the new axle. Yeah, we're going to be 35-ish probably. You know, and he said he wanted to be under 40. So I think I can get him well under 40. But damn, I mean, and that engine we took out of a truck that we ran for 2 years before it was wrecked. And so it had an OPS on it. We did, we did oil samples and all that stuff. So I have good history on the motor. I think we're going to be in a 30 to 35 range. What would you build for pulling 120,000 gross in the Midwest? Hauling steel coils.
120,000 gross.
Yeah. Would a 3-axle do that with permits?
Depends on what trailer you have. I mean, what kind of trailer are you pulling? If you're pulling, double drop, flatbed, or whatever,
We said
120,000
steel coils,
gross.
so it'd have to be a flatbed.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, hey, if you want to buy a 4-axle flatbed to pull that with, I know a guy, buddy. By the way, anyways, I mean, yeah, you could do it with just a regular 3-axle truck. Unhook it from the van, hook it up to 3 or 4-axle flatbed, and go to work.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep.
I mean, these lunatic trucks that we got would do 120, if the trailer was set up right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that one that that Evan's driving now, the one that Snyder took out the hood on it. I mean, I put 96,000 pound fuel generators on a 5-axle flatbed behind that truck before. So, it'll do some weight.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was pushing probably about 136,000 gross, something like that. 'Cause that trailer was stupid light for what it was, but I mean, yeah. You don't have to go buy, one of these big 4-axle heavy haul trucks to pull 120,000 gross. I mean, unless you just want to spend a bunch of money that you don't need to. I mean, you could, go get you one. I wouldn't recommend 450 horse engine. I'd try to get at least a 500 horse,
Mm-hmm.
and go buy you a 13-speed one with 13-speed transmission in it or something. You could do it with a 10-speed, but it kind of be aggravating starting out on real steep hills sometimes. But if you're in the Midwest, you shouldn't have to deal with that. But yeah.
Philip Bauer says for $40K you can get a pretty nice road ready Cascadia. Well, depends on what your definition of road ready is. My definition of road ready is the entire suspension has been gone through. Torque rods, bushings, shocks, bearings, hubs, brakes, brake drums. Of course, if you're getting a $40,000 Cascadia, you're going to have to service the emission system. That's about $2,000. You're going to have the risk. You're going to have the added risk, whether you like it or not. Cascadias with DD15s, they're great trucks, great engines, but they come with an additional level of risk that the 2001 that I'm working on right now does not possess. It does not have the same risk profile that a Cascadia does. You know, Cascadias have CPCs in them, right? And when you find out what a CPC is, when you go to hit the accelerator and nothing happens, or it won't start because it's a bad CPC, and then somebody's got to bring you one and they got to program it. And then they program it and they put it in and it starts one time and then that CPC goes bad and you got to do it all over again. You have modules that run the lights and one of those $1,000 modules goes bad and your lights won't work. Cascade or Columbias and Centuries, they all run on fuses, switches, and relays, don't they, Phil?
That's a fact. Yeah, I replaced this body control module in this ProStar about a month and a half ago for the tune of like $2,300-$2,400, and that's me taking it out, taking it to the dealer, and getting them to program a new one. You know, they had one sitting on the shelf. All they had to do was program it, but you know, they don't account for any labor or anything like that. But yeah, that's some of these electronics on these newer trucks they can be a pain and they can be really expensive too. So
listen, a Century. I mean, listen, one of the axles can fall off and have a rod hanging through the block, and you can still make your delivery. I mean,
yeah,
that's just, you know, are they as comfortable? No. Are they quiet? No.
you know,
God, they're hot in the summer and they're cold in the winter. My truck, I had to drive my truck with a big Carhartt jacket on my legs, you know, driving in Pennsylvania, New York in the wintertime for 4 years. But you know, and I like, now I'm still not a big fan of the automatics. You know, it's just another level of risk. The I mean, my God, they're $9,000 transmissions. We just bought a brand new 13 speed for 3,100.
hell, I paid over $9,000 to have the clutch done on this truck. That was probably about 2 or 3 years ago. Of course, they went in and redone the oh crap, what's that called? The rear structure on this ISX.
Oh yeah,
They redone that, put the rear main in it and all that stuff, put the new clutch in it. I mean, it was leaking pretty bad, but we done all that at the same time. But yeah, it was north of $9,000 to do all that, and yeah, they're definitely not cheap for sure.
we have a 17 Cascadia that was brought to us by a young man, very young man, like 20, 21 years old, that had gotten into the height of the market and bought 4 or 5 trucks and 4 or 5 trailers, and then 2022 hit and the whole thing crashed and burned. He had 1 truck left. And man, this thing had been rode hard and put up wet, but we brought it in. We got it straightened up. Probably ran it about a year. Driver calls me one day, clutch is out, South Carolina. I found a shop, did a reasonable job with it. The $6,500 to put a clutch in it because you got to have an actuator and the flywheel and the clutch. So that was $6,500. All right, so I get the truck back from that, and because we'd moved the driver into another truck, so I get the truck back, and I go to drive it, and I'm like, this thing's got a vibration. Well, right after we put that $6,500 clutch in, we found out that the rear structure, which on a 13 or a 10 would just be about a 10-hour job of dropping the transmission, pull the back case off, put a new bearing in it, slap it all back together, and put it back in the truck. Nope, not on a DT12. They're non-serviceable. Because I called and I'm like, hey, man, I need to get this output bearing for this DT12. It's got some slop in it and it's causing a vibration. And then he was like, dude, that's not available. Your only choice is to buy a transmission. I said, how much is that? He said, $9,300. I said, you have got to be shitting me. And that was a good price from a dealer that always gives us good pricing. Well, then the transmission has to come back out and go back in. Right. I mean, it was I mean, just in a span of a month. Let's see, they charge 12 hours, so 12, 14. So about $18,000 in the span of about a month on that truck. Um, you know, but you can't, and I know everybody wants to blame the drivers. Listen, you can't blame drivers these days because don't nobody know nothing about anything. But when I get trucks back and I go, "Oh god, well, how did you not know about that?" or "How did you not know about that?" Because they just don't know. They just don't know. And so I could feel the vibration, but probably nobody else would. But I got 3 million miles behind the wheel. The truck can make a sound, and I'm like, "Oh, I know what that is." And they're like, "Oh, what sound?" You know. So the driver had no idea that the transmission had a problem. He just, but he knew when the clutch stopped working. You know. So, um, these T680s and 579s and all the nightmare of the wiring system. There's just so much risk involved in these newer trucks that I can eliminate by driving a 99 to '07. I just don't have those problems. Do 99 to '07s have problems? Of course they do. But the level of problem is nowhere near the stuff that you can get into with these newer trucks. And that's why I don't prefer them. I still prefer the old trucks.
Yep.
Um, uh, this D64 Falcon says Phil should remember me. Bald guy showed up to casino during Matt's for drinks and even went to dinner another night with him and some of your other drivers. Well, listen, asking Phil to remember things that were happening during Matt's is probably, but somebody says
Yeah,
they
I
want
mean,
to hear from Phil, so please let him talk. So Phil, go ahead and talk. We'll talk about anything you want to talk about.
well, I don't know. Part of that Matt's ordeal was it's a little bit blurry at this point. There's that was many many beers ago. So hell, that would have been many beers ago. 2 days later from that. So yeah, I don't know.
um, I was thinking before we started talking, there was something I was going to ask you to talk about. Now I can't remember what it was. Um, oh, I know what it was. What did you do before trucking? How old were you when you started trucking?
I started in. I went to driving school in April of 2007. So let's see. I would have been.
Don't have to take your shoes off.
Yeah, I want to take my shoes off. I think I was like 24, something like that. 23,
Okay.
24.
So what'd you do before
Um,
trucking?
I loaded trucks. I worked. I worked at a warehouse for VF Jeanswear. VF Jeanswear owned Wrangler, Lee, Ryder. They own brands that cost $100, $200 a piece, all the way down to the stuff that you'd buy at Walmart. That's actually where I met my wife at. We used to work together. Um, but yeah, I when I first started over there, I did 2 or 3 jobs, and finally I wound up in the shipping department over there loading trucks. And I got to talking to some of the truck drivers coming in there, and of course, they were making a hell of a lot more money than what I was at the time. I mean, uh, you know, and I look at them, look at the trucks, and I'm like, you know what? This job kind of sucks. I don't want to do this 9 to 5 crap the rest of my life. So I came up with this ingenious plan to pay cash for driving school where I wouldn't be. I don't know if somebody told me this. I don't remember if I just had it in my mind that I would pay cash for it or whatever, where I wouldn't be enslaved to some company. Like a lot of these guys, they charge them what 75. It's probably $10,000 to go, but now I don't know. I think I paid like twenty five
Yeah.
hundred dollars cash to go to driving school. And the one I went to, it was out of business probably 2 years after I graduated this crap, and you didn't learn much, you know. So I learned one of the guys, one of the instructors was he was doing some things with one of the girls that was in driving school with us. That was about all I learned out of it. But I guess they taught me enough to get a driver or to get a CDL and you know, go from there. But yeah, $2,500, yeah, that's dirt cheap compared to what you would pay for one today. I could imagine what these guys are charging now. And I know for a fact they don't teach them anything. We see that all the time. So I actually had some really pretty decent instructors, you know. And then I had my first job, my first driving job was for Eagle Motor Lines out of Birmingham, Alabama. They had two companies. They're kind of like Enway and Ranger. So they had
Yeah.
Eagle Motor Lines and then Southern Cal Transport, and they
Oh,
eventually
yeah.
got bought out. They eventually got bought out by I think that company that it was the company that Larry started with originally
Oh,
before he
Transport
bought a truck.
America. I thought
Yeah,
they
they
got
got
bought
bought out.
by I thought they got bought by Covenant, but maybe I'm thinking of something. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
Well, no, they got bought out by Transport America after I quit. I did 3 years. Yeah, roughly. Well, from let's see, it would have been from April of 2007 to November of 2010 that I worked there, and then I went and bought my first truck, which was that white Freightliner, and came to
What
Landstar, and I've been
what
here ever
kind of
since.
what kind of freight did you do with that? Like, just van?
With the Freightliner, no shit, man. We when I first started, yeah, we was doing van, and then one of the guys that I went to orientation with at Landstar,
I think
uh,
we're talking about the company before Landstar. Was that just van?
oh, the company, yeah, yeah, that was just van stuff. I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground back then about platform stuff, but I didn't get into that till after I got here at Landstar. But yeah, yeah, we did van. We did some. One of them was, you know, I think the Eagle side of it you ran solo, and the other one you ran team. So uh, I kind of wore me out running that team thing after the guy that I was running team with run a red light over there in Dalton, Georgia, and hit 3 cars at one time. So I decided that team shit was no longer for me. If I was going to be involved in a truck accident, it's going to be because I was the one driving it.
Yeah.
So
I ran team with a few really good friends. I have 3 guys that I had a really good experience with. One of them was, like, my best friend from high school, and bless his heart, he was accident prone, not really in the truck per se. Um, well, that's not true. Uh, he had a light pole driving for, US Express, and we were driving for a guy that owned a little fleet. So we all had W9s and classics and shit like that. And,
yeah,
we were at this little drop yard, this little gravel drop yard in, like, Phoenix. And so we'd gone in there to drop and hook, and I had already hooked my trailer, and I was sitting over by the exit, and all of a sudden, all the lights in the place went out, like, went completely dark, and I couldn't hear his truck. So I start walking around there. When I find him, and he had dead centered this light pole with the hood, right?
oh my,
He said, "Well, I couldn't see it." I'm like, I mean, there was a crease down the grill, right?
yeah,
And he said, "Well, man, I barely touched it." And I looked down, okay, and this pole, this metal pole, was about 18 inches down in the ground, okay, and the bottom of the pole was now about 3 feet from the hole. I'm like, so
oh
you're telling me
wow,
that this pole went up 18 inches to come out of the ground and then went 3 feet and you barely touched it? Um, but we were when we first were teaming, and of course I was brand new too. I started in '97. He started in '98. We're driving for US Express and, just run whatever team. And we're out in Tacoma, Washington, where surprisingly it was raining. I
Yeah.
know that shocked everybody, but it was raining in Tacoma, Washington. And I'm in the bed. I'd just gone to bed. And it's pitch black. It's nighttime. And I feel him hit the brakes really hard. And then he hit him really hard again. And just something about that made me grab a hold of the mattress really tight. I had that net thing over top of me. And boom,
Right.
I feel the impact that we've just hit something big. And so I've got my eyes squeezed tight. I'm laying and I'm eating this mattress, and then the truck comes to a stop. And I hear the brakes set. And so I unbuckle myself and I stand up. Well, he's gone. Like he's left truck. And we're sitting in the middle lane of I-5 South. So I'm trying to get, my clothes on and get my bearings about me. And so I go out and I find him. Well, he's run over a Ford Taurus, like the first gen Ford Taurus, which as we now know are built like tanks.
Thanks. Yep.
Well, it was 4 teenage girls in the car. They're all like range between like 16 and 17. No license, no insurance, and they got cut off by this, he said, full-size van. He saw it happen. They cut him off. The
Right.
girl freaks out. She cuts the wheel. She starts doing 360 flat spins, and her left front and our right front came together. Well, then when he hit her, it slung her off in the ditch. And so that's where he was. He was down there, checking on them. And so I'm trying to, get going. So cops show up and he's like, well, hey, take the truck out of the middle lane, go pull it on my shoulder. Well, when I went to straighten the wheel up, the wheel was pointing the wrong direction because it bent the tie rod assembly. So I get the truck
Right.
over on the shoulder. And so as time goes by, and I'll never forget this monstrous cop, this black guy, he's probably 6'5". And as I'm walking past the cop car, my buddy and this girl are sitting in the back seat, and this cop is just tearing this girl new asshole. I mean, he is lighting her ass up for driving without a license, driving without insurance, and all this stuff. And I look, and my dumbass buddy sitting there holding her hand,
Oh shit.
trying to get her through the
Trying to console her.
oh yeah, yeah. He was a white knight. So anyway, the rollback comes, and he's loading this Ford Taurus up. And I walk up there to look at it, and I said, how bad is it? He goes, really ain't hurt. There was 5 holes in the fender where our lug nuts hit the door,
Right.
and the fender was tore up. They had to tow our damn truck because we couldn't drive the truck, but the Ford Taurus was fine. You could have got it, put it in gear. If we'd have had somebody with a driver's license, you could have drove it home. So
Right.
Ford Taurus 1, Freightliner 0.
Wow.
All right. So back to your story. So you bought a truck. How much you pay for that truck?
I paid a little over $15,000 in change for that truck.
So that's a 2002 Columbia. Did it have it had
Right.
the 13 in it then, right?
Oh yeah, that was the first 13 speed I ever drove, and that was the day that I decided that I would never own another 10 speed in my entire life, and I have not went back on that yet.
Now, tell us all about the button on the dash.
Oh, the button on the dash, the one you got to mash to crank the truck.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe how many shops that I took that to, and I wouldn't tell them on purpose, because they would always call me and be like, and something's wrong. Like I would bring it in for something totally unrelated, and they'd be like, man, or I would take it to the same shop and it'd be a different mechanic or something, get in it
Yeah.
and try to move it or some shit. Man, I can't get what is wrong with your truck? Like it won't do anything. Like I can't figure this thing out. Well, I don't, what was that button labeled as? You remember?
Reverse something. Now I
Maybe it
can't
was a
remember. I'm gonna have to
reversal.
go look.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, what it was it was a safety feature. It was an old Swift truck's what it was, and Swift had put this safety feature on there to where I guess it was to deter people from stealing the trucks. And by God, if Swift ever come up with a good idea, They
Yeah.
they nailed that one. Okay, they nailed that because nobody could figure that one out. You get in that truck, turn the key, and mash the clutch, and it did nothing. And yeah, it was. Needless to say, it was a conversation piece for sure. But
It got me here at the house. I had it parked out here in the front yard for some reason. I don't know, it sat a while and the batteries were completely dead. So and I'd tried, jump starting and all that stuff and just no and so screw it. So I went and bought 4 new batteries and had a driver here with me. He was, going to get in it, driving. So I put all the new batteries in, got everything hooked up, get up in there, turn the key, nothing. My God, what the hell, man? I was all over that thing with a test light and a voltmeter, and I'm checking everything I can check. And he's like, "What do you think the problem is?" And I'm like, "I don't know why this truck won't." I got up there and pushed that damn button. It fired right up. I'm like, "So let's
yep,
have a conversation about the button on the dash that if you don't press, it is not going to start."
yep,
Man, I spent an hour backup override. Jared said BKUP
yep. That's what it
OVRD
was.
backup
Yep,
override. Um,
yep.
So you bought this truck for $15,000 in 2010?
10. I bought it November 2000. No, is that right? Yeah, I bought it November 2010 and leased the Landstar in December 2010. And we
And
started off as your regular old box jockey. I did some pretty cool loads with Landstar as a box jockey though. I got the guy that I went to orientation with. I was telling him about. He got hooked up with this agent. He used to pull a lot of cabinet loads for him, the ones that you had to tailgate to the back of the trailer. And I did a
mhm,
couple of them, but he had this other account that he landed that was pulling these gaming systems. They used to go to these big hotels like the Hyatt and stuff like that. And this was back when I think it was what was it Modern Warfare? I can't remember which one. It was one of the big name video games
mhm,
when it first came out that everybody was crazy about. And they would set up these competitions inside these nice hotels. Like we did one in Washington D.C. There was one in Dallas. Actually parked the truck at the hotel there. I had to unhook the trailer and park the truck, bobtail on the street. Put out, I made them put out little orange road cones. I called Landstar, went through that whole process that you got to do to keep from getting fired for being a set
mhm.
duck. I did all that stuff, and I actually was able to walk to the White House from where this hotel was.
I bet they wouldn't let
And
you anywhere near the White House today, would they?
probably not. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near it, to be honest with you. Um, but yeah, I did that a couple times. They would actually pay you to. What you would do is you'd bring the load in on like a Thursday or a Friday, and then they would unload your trailer, and you would let it sit there all week, and then like Monday or Tuesday, uh, you'd load it back up, take it back to where it was going, and they would pay you the entire time you were sitting there. So, a lot of times I'd go get a hotel room or whatever, because I didn't want to
Mhm.
sit in the truck. And but yeah, that was a pretty good little gig. We did that a few times. Hauled a MRI machine one time, and um, I kind of, there was a lot of these guys at Landstar that specialize that do the van stuff. Go by the lift gates and they'll go
Mhm.
haul the slot machines for the casinos and stuff. Do the blanket wrap and all that. I had a few blankets with me. I didn't have very many, but I had enough there. Every once in a while, there was an agent that would have these loads where you need like 15 or 20 blankets to blanket wrap something with, and they paid generally much better than whatever
Oh,
else
yeah.
was going on at the time. And I figured out with a little bit of investment, you could make a lot more money. So I started doing that, but eventually, like I said, the guy that I went to orientation with, he talked me into doing the platform stuff, and he pretty much drug me over here kicking and screaming because I was like, dude, I don't want to do this. Because the last thing I did when I was pulling a van, I had this gig for this agent, and the word dedicated was never used on this, but I had about 3 or 4 loads a week where I would there was some little place that was south of Jackson, Tennessee, that I would go pick up this stuff for Whirlpool and take it over to just north of Chattanooga. And I think we actually did this maybe 4 or 5 days a week. I don't know, but it paid really, really well. And you know, I was making all kind of money doing that. And I told him, I said, when this gig ends, I'll go try your platform crap out, you know. And buddy, I tell you what, we've been a lot of rules and broke a few rules when I first started, but I came up through the ranks a lot quicker than I was supposed to. But you know, I I'll tell you right now, there's no way in hell I was gonna go pull a van. I'm not gonna say I'd never do it. I'd
Mhm.
have to be pretty damn hungry though.
Yeah.
That is not something that I ever want to do again. Is pull a van. I just you get into platform stuff and it's just a whole different world, whole different game. You pull up these shippers and receivers and people act like they're actually proud to see you. They're glad you're
Yeah.
there. You know, you don't go stand in a damn metal cage for 30 minutes trying to get some guy's attention that's, you know, 300 yards across this dark warehouse to try to unload you for the most part. I mean, you don't have to deal with stuff like that. So uh, it's a totally different ball game.
Yeah.
But
Well, sir,
yeah,
we have crossed the 2-hour mark, and that's usually about where we shut it down. Um, so
all
I
right.
didn't have a maintenance shop video this week just because stuff going on. But Kyle is in the middle of building an engine right now. We've got 4 to do, so he's going to get some really good video of the next one. So we'll be bringing that to you as soon as we can. And we got some other stuff to announce here in the next couple of weeks. But anyway, I've been here sitting at this chair for 2 hours and 6 minutes, and my bladder is screaming, "Please stop! Just whatever you're doing, please stop." So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna listen to that, and we will see y'all next week. We'll be back with you on the TikTok and the YouTube and the Face Bag, and so come back and see us. We'll see.